This video is part 2 of a video introduction to trigonometry. And in this particular video, we're going to do two different problems. We are going to, in the first problem, find the side of a right triangle, the missing side of a right triangle, given that we know one of the angles and one of the sides. In the second problem, we are going to actually find the angle of one of the triangles if we know two of the sides. Okay, now we could find the third side by just using the Pythagorean theorem or a number of other methods, but we don't know how to find the angle yet, and that's what I want to do in this particular video. Okay, so let's get started. So here's the problem. I know, for example, in this right triangle, I know that this is the 90-degree angle here. This was given as 28, which means that we can actually figure out what this angle is, so just adding up this plus this is equal to 180, subtract and find this one, but that's not what we're trying to find here. We're trying to find the missing side, which is the hypotenuse, right? So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we need to remember is the mnemonic. Remember, a mnemonic is just a word that's made up that gives you some information. And the mnemonic I want you to remember is Sohcahtoa. And those letters are capitalized for a reason. All right? I'm just going to bring it in there for just a second. So S stands for sine, so that we know that the sine of an angle is going to be equal to the opposite side in the triangle over the hypotenuse. All right? So I'm just going to go op over hypo. Opposite over hypotenuse. The CAH gives me the cosine of any angle is going to be equal to the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. So adj over hypo. And finally, the TOA gives me the third. Let me just bring this out just a teeny bit. And that is the tangent of any angle is equal to the opposite side over the adjacent side. Now, once we know those three relationships between the angles and the sides, we get to match it up and analyze and see which one of these would work the best. Well, we know we have an angle, we know we have an opposite side, and we know we have a hypotenuse. So it looks like the best choice of the three of these would be the sine of 28 degrees would be equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. All right, so let's go ahead and do that off to the side. So this is what I would write. I would say the sine, let me see here. And when you write sine, it's written as S-I-N, okay? 28 degrees is equal to the opposite side from the 28, which is 3, over the hypotenuse, which is what we're trying to find. Okay? Now, what is the sine of 28 degrees? We can find that in our calculators. So again, let me just pull this out just a little bit so we can have a little bit more room. Now, one thing I want you to check, go touch your mode screen, so right here, there we go, and make sure that your setting is on degrees, okay? If it's on radians, it's not going to work correctly, so just make sure that it's on degrees. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our regular part. We want to find the sine of 28 degrees. So the way I do is I would go down to this button here where it says sine, and this is what shows up. Punch in 28 and then press enter. We know that the sine of 28 degrees is 0.46947. Now, normally I would go to 4 places, so I'm going to say 0.4695. And we're going to replace sine of 28 with 0.4695. There's my step 1. There's my step 2. Now I just go ahead and solve for this. And remember, you have to use your algebra to solve for this part. In order to put this x up in the numerator, I'm going to multiply by 1. Once you do that, this goes away. And that's going to give me, step 3, x times 0.4695 is equal to 3. Let's just go ahead and divide both sides by 0.4695. So 3 divided by 0.4695, and that's going to give me 6.3897. And I'm just going to go to, again, 3 places here, 6.390. Okay, could just move that up 1. 6.390 is what's equal to x. Okay, and there's our answer. Now, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to pretend, I'm just going to use this exact same problem. I'm just going to switch it around just a little bit. I'm going to pretend I don't know 28 degrees, but I do know the two sides. And notice I put 6.4, which is essentially 6.390. You know what, actually? Let's make it exactly 0.6390. So I'm going to erase that. Okay. There we go. Just do a quick erase. And I'm going to call that 6.390. And I'm going to show you how to use something called the inverse sine to find theta. Okay, this is an important skill to know. All right, so let's set up the problem. If I want to find this particular angle, and I know again I have an opposite from the angle and I have a hypotenuse, I know that I can use the sine function. So I'm going to say the sine of my unknown angle, and again this is called theta, is equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse. Okay, now in order to start solving this problem, let's figure out what this ratio is. 3 divided by 6.390. So go back to our calculator. 3 divided by 6.390, and we found out that that's equal to 0.469, and let's just round that up to 5. Doesn't that sound familiar? So now I have the sine of my unknown angle is 0.4695. Okay? Now, what I have to do here is I have to do something called the inverse function, right? And what I do is, let me show you. I'm going to rewrite this. Whoops. The inverse is written like that. So I'm going to say the inverse of sine theta, and I'm going to put that on both sides. Okay? Now, whenever you multiply something by its inverse, it equals 1. So this essentially just goes away. And what I have now is theta is equal to the inverse sine of 0.4695. And what you do on your calculator is locate the sine function, and you notice there it is, but you see right above it is the inverse sine. It looks like it's sine to the -1. And the way you get to that is to press the second sine, and notice now you have it. Okay? And pressing 0.4695. Press enter, and there's your answer. So theta would be equal to 28.00 or 28 degrees. Okay? And then we put that up there. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. So to find the angles, you need to be able to use the inverse sine, and to find the sides, you basically need to use the sine functions, and you have to choose which one of the functions is most correct given the information you have. I hope that was helpful.